When Moses smote the rock, he sinned, and God said, "For that you may not go in." What was the sin? To some it was he disobeyed God. To others it was that he spoiled a symbol by striking the rock twice, and God says, "I don't like it when people spoil my symbols." I don't think God's like that either. If you'll read Exodus and Numbers and Deuteronomy, it says that the sin of Moses at the rock was that he broke faith with God. He let God down and did not present God as holy to the people. That's what's mentioned. You see, Moses was God's friend, and God used friendship talk when he talked to Moses. He didn't say sin is breaking the rules. He used Paul's definition. Sin is a breakdown of trust. What happened up in heaven was not breaking the rules. It was a breakdown of trust. That's what started the war. That's the essence of sin. And the people trusted Moses tremendously. They saw him come from the presence of God, as we discussed earlier. He had enormous influence with the people. They didn't always obey him, didn't obey God either, but they took him fairly seriously most of the time. When he came down off the mountain carrying the 10 Commandments, with his face aglow, had to wear a veil out of consideration for the people, they knew there was something very special about Moses. And so Moses represented God to them, and they said, "And will you please represent us to God and be our intercessor? Let God speak to you and you speak to us." You remember? This is Moses' position among God's people. And Moses had done very wonderfully to represent God. When God even said, "Moses, I'm sick and tired of these people. Let me destroy them and make a great nation of you," Moses didn't say, "Well, if you say so, by all means. They do deserve it, and I'd like to be a great nation too." He said, "God, if you were to do that, you'd ruin your reputation. The Egyptians would hear of it and think you're too weak to take your people to the promised land." Look at him defending God's reputation. It was marvelous, and God was proud of his old friend. And when it came to the rock experience, the people were complaining and fussing. This is the generation that had lived the 40 years. This was the good group now that was going to go in. And here they were showing lack of faith and trust in God, and they demanded water. And God said, "Moses, what I want you to do, you may find this hard to do. I want you just to give them all the water they want. Just speak to the rock. Don't make a scene out of this. Don't preach to them. I know they're behaving very badly, but I choose on this occasion to try to win them with kindness, that the kindness of God may lead them to repentance," Romans 2:4. "Because I need some people to trust me as we go together into that dangerous land of Canaan and meet the Canaanites." And Moses did not let God picture himself as kind and incredibly generous and full of grace. He got up there and said, "You ungrateful wretches, must we bring forth water from this rock?" And he pictured God as angry with them when he wasn't. And God said, "You let me down. It's not so much you disobeyed me or spoiled my symbol. You misrepresented me to the people. You pictured me as angry when I wasn't. I wanted to give them all the water they needed." In fact, he did anyway, and an abundance of water came forth. And then he said to Moses, "Because you've done this thing, you may not go into the promised land after 120 years. And Moses begged him, and finally God said, "Speak to me no more of this matter. Let me tell you more about the significance of what you've done. You just did to my followers what Lucifer did to my angels. You misrepresented me to people who trusted you. You, my number one prophet. In fact, I don't even speak to you like a prophet. I talk to you face to face as a man speaks to his friend," Numbers says. "And you misrepresented me." That's the most damaging thing a person can ever do. To the extent that we have great influence and respect and we misrepresent God, we have done even greater damage. I must go on record before the universe that this is the most damaging thing you can do. When did you last pray, "God, forgive me if I misrepresented you today"? If you had to discipline your children, do you worry with God about whether or not you misrepresented God to the children, the way you conduct worship and so on? We don't have that on the list, but that's what does all the damage. And finally, God said to Moses, "Do you still trust me? Are you still my friend?" And Moses said, "I was going to ask you that. Are we still friends? I'll admit now I really let you down. and I'm very sorry. Now can I go in? No. I go on record that this is so serious. But Moses, I love you. You really have been my friend, and you will be forever. So come up into the mountain. And the Lord showed him the promised land and the whole history right down to the crucifixion. He showed him the resurrection of Christ, and he said, Moses, I'm going to let you open the gates to let my son in when he comes back. And then he buried his old friend. How would you like to have the Lord for your undertaker? Personally buried him. And he could hardly wait to come back and resurrect him. He needed him because the angels didn't understand this as well as Moses did. You remember the quotes? The angels couldn't understand why God wouldn't move in and destroy the people who were behaving so badly. Moses usually would say, God, don't do it. People will misunderstand. Moses really understood God marvelously. And Moses has been up in heaven, and Enoch and Elijah have been up there bearing witness to the angels, you know. It's wonderful. Evidence for that. When Jesus was here facing a time of terrible stress, when he would be tempted, yes, to let God down under pressure, he looked over all the individuals in his universe who could come and encourage Jesus. And he sent Moses and Elijah. And those two human beings came down on the mountain and talked to Jesus. And I wish we had the record. I could imagine Moses and Elijah saying, Jesus, we have some little idea of what you're about to face. When we came under pressure, we both collapsed and let God down. If you were to collapse, you'd let everything down. But we know you won't. And he didn't. And on Resurrection Sunday, when Jesus went up to heaven to find if the universe had got the message, the first one he meets is Moses. And I can hear Moses say, you did it. We collapsed, but you didn't. And the angels, they got the message too. But look at Moses' role. It's marvelous, see. He let God down on a level we don't even talk about. But that's what sin is between friends. It isn't that he broke a rule. He let God down. He was not a trusting, trustworthy friend. And that's what I wish we were known as, you know, because we'll need to be like Moses and Elijah and Job and those other great characters, and you wonder how we ever could be. It does mean growing up a little, to be sure. But on the other hand, what do you think about a God who would honor his friend Moses, who let him down so seriously? He's just gone out of his way to honor Moses ever since. God looks good. He's the only one who does all the way through scriptures, which is what the good news is all about, of course.